so today I'm going to mix up sabi-urushi with the addition of some old brown hide glue to make it nikawa-sabi-urushi. I'm going to apply it to a number of items. For the most part, I'm not really going to be doing much talking, just working, but you're welcome to follow along, observe any of the steps and methods that I use, and just keep in mind, remember that there is no right or wrong way to do urushi. There are just ways that work and ways that don't. Some are more efficient and better than others. But this is a tradition that is done not only in Japan, where the word urushi comes from, but also China, Korea, Vietnam, and every place and location has a little bit different ways of doing things. And then not to mention here in the US, I'm sure it's different yet again. So what I just put in here was jinoko clay, and I put some soot as well. So I had 100 grams of jinoko, 4 grams of carbon black, aka soot, and this is calcium carbonate. In other words, it's powdered lime. And I'm going to add about 25 grams of that. Okay. And then I'm going to add about 50 grams of water to start. Okay. And I'm going to mix that up. Make sure that all my amounts are good. Oh, that's perfect. Perfect consistency already. I might actually need to thicken this up just a bit with some sawdust that I forgot. I like to add a little bit of sawdust to it. Makes the overall mixture a little bit lighter. And slightly, almost imperceptibly easier to sand. Without sacrificing any of the other qualities here. So that's good. I'm going to go ahead and get that out. I'm going to go ahead and add the sawdust that I mentioned. I'm not going to measure this. Doesn't need to be a ton. All in all, I would say that is probably 2 grams, maybe 3. And I'm going to mix that. Okay. Now right now we have about 135 grams of material. Going to go ahead and add about 5 grams of liquid hide glue. Which in Japanese, just regular hide glue is nikawa, so technically this is nikawa-sabi-urushi. Gonna mix that hide glue in. I rephrase, it will be nikawa-sabi-urushi. There is no urushi here yet. Alright, good. Now this is a newly opened tube of raw urushi, the sashime urushi. I've used, I don't know, 3 or 4 grams of it so far, but I'm basically going to wind up using the whole tube. This is a 100-gram tube. I'm not going to put it all out at once, but I'm going to put it out little by little, get it mixed in. And if I need to adjust any other amounts of things, I can do so here in a little bit. You can see that the hide glue is already reacting with the urushi. Reacting is probably not the correct word because there's no chemical reaction that happens, but it does thicken up significantly from the second that hide glue and urushi touch each other. And that is because urushi, the urushi molecules surround the nikawa molecules. But it's really chunky, difficult to mix at this stage. And go ahead and add more urushi now. At this stage, you might begin to see some of the water that I had added earlier start to separate, which is doing so right now. You can see it's a little bit sloppy and slushy. And we're going to have to mix this until all the water is mixed back into the mixture. So it takes a little bit of time. Why this happens when the urushi, water, and hide glue all combine, I do not know, but it does happen. Very slowly, starting to reincorporate. I'm going to go ahead and add all the rest of the urushi now. Now all of this mixing can be done inside of the container. And in fact, after I'm done here, I will probably continue to mix it a little bit more in the container. But again, as I mentioned, this way everything is definitely well incorporated. All of the powders and things will absorb the urushi. There won't be any clumps of anything hard or clumps of things that didn't absorb correctly. And as you can see, pretty much all of the water has now reabsorbed. It's a nice batter-like consistency. I'll begin on this little tea bowl. This one is made all of cloth, and I'm going to be adding another piece to the bottom here, as well as another reinforcement around the rim, as it is still somewhat flexible. First step is to apply the sabi to the container or the vessel that you're working with. I think I'm actually going to switch to spatula for this. Sometimes I just apply this with my finger. But with the spatula, pushing downward on it with the flexible tip, it makes sure it pushes it all down into the pores of the cloth. Alright, I'm going to apply the bottom piece here. In case you were wondering the purpose of the nikawa to begin with, why add that? That is actually for making the lacquer very sticky and thick. Without the addition of the nikawa, the urushi can act as a glue, but it's a very thin one, so it doesn't adhere things together well. the nikawa makes it thick enough that it's still the urushi doing the gluing, despite the actual hide glue that is added. As I mentioned earlier, the urushiol molecules surround the hide glue molecules, so it's not actually the hide glue doing the bonding, but it's still the urushi. It just makes it thick enough. A lot of applications use rice paste instead of nikawa, which is fine, but nikawa is actually probably a little bit better suited to overall strength, resilience. In fact, when I went to Wajima, Japan, they did not use nikawa. They do use rice paste there for the pasting applications that I was able to witness. And there's nothing wrong with that. Wajima lacquerware is known as basically the best in the world. I just prefer nikawa. I'm just getting out some of the excess now because we don't want it too thick. Urushi that is too thick will not cure properly. Alright, now I'm going to take the cloth that will be used as the rim and apply a layer to it. What I am pasting, by the way, is hemp cloth. Typically I prefer rami cloth, but I want the texture of the hemp in this case. It's good. Alright. Okay, back to lacquering with the same mixture I mixed up, but now second day. Same sabi-urushi with the nikawa mixture is being applied to this board. Not because I'm adding cloth to it, at least not at this moment. I probably won't be at all. But to remove any traces of the grain of the wood, because I want this to be perfectly flat and featureless, as I will be applying some gold leaf to a portion of it later as the back of a cabinet. Well, it's more of a, I was going to say a miniature cabinet, but it's really more of a small box. With the urushi, it's important to do the same thing to both sides. Whatever it is that you do to one side, you should do to the other. And that is because urushi does create a moisture barrier, a waterproof barrier, and fluctuations in humidity and other things can cause the substrate to warp if it is exposed to humidity unevenly, particularly when it comes to wood. This bowl here was also made of string, hemp string, again coiled tightly with a cloth bottom and cloth interior. And I'm going to go ahead and add a layer of sabi-urushi to it, an additional cloth bottom, and an additional cloth rim. I apologize for all of the back and forth spatula switching. I'm still learning which spatulas are best for which, because in the past I literally only used one for everything, and I've learned that some different sizes and shapes are a little bit better suited to different things, so my hands haven't quite learned yet what to grab. At least not as a muscle memory. So I'll pick something up, start using it, remember why I didn't intend to use it, and switch. Or decide, oh, I'm already using it, I might as well just keep using it. So as I mentioned earlier, it doesn't have to be perfect. Sometimes you just wind up wasting time when sanding it will take care of it all on its own. Okay. So that will get cleaned up later in the sanding process. This is also rami cloth, but a very, very thin example of it. I think this is, I was going to say it's number 80, but that's not true. This is much finer than that. I'm choosing such a thin piece of it because going around the rim of this container, I want to make sure that the lid fits snugly and securely without slop, but also without having to force anything. It's already it's very close already. The tolerance is quite tight, so I don't have a lot of additional space to work with, which is desirable actually. And this should be just right. Very carefully, I just want to tap this down without raising it up from the rim here. Working on the interiors of things can be quite challenging at times because it often wants to just lift right back up with you, regardless of the tool that you use. Still bits of it are lifted. I have to make sure that after pushing down one area, a different area doesn't lift back up. That seems good. Now, repeating the same process on the lid itself. The biggest problem with applying to the interior, the inside rim specifically, of an item are all of these loose threads, and getting any one of them caught on your finger, on the tool you're using, it doesn't matter what, it pulls the rest of it right up. And I've never characterized myself as a person with patience, but I think this definitely takes some patience. Another issue with it is that the interior dimensions are technically slightly smaller than the outside dimensions. So any cloth that you cut that will adequately cover the inside is always going to be just a touch long on the, I think I said that backwards. Any cloth that you cut to be long enough for the outside will by default also be a little bit too long for the inside, which causes a little bit of bunching of the fabric and having to continue to pull it a little bit tighter than it was initially. And that, combined with the trailing threads here, now putting these two together and making sure they don't adhere to each other but that the form is accurate requires a little bit of mechanical separation. I'm about to have to stop to make more sabi. Maybe just enough left to finish what I'm doing to this piece. Hopefully I can lift this without lifting the rest. All right. All right, Piotr. You can really do this to patch holes. Get scraps of the cloth or scraps of cotton ball and basically take the same mixture that I have here with the nikawa and combine it with the fibers, and you can mold it and shape it as long as it's not this thick. Let's say take off a piece of that. You can use bits of this size to stuff into holes in case you've overdone something, you need to patch something. That should dry in a day or so, as long as there is enough fiber in there to make it where you can mold it like this. If this is too thick, which it very well may be, you can take that mixture that doesn't have the fiber in it and also apply it as is, but in much thinner amounts. You don't want to go up to an 1/8 thick, for example. Maybe a 1/16 would dry in probably a matter of, I would say, roughly 2 to 3 days. Here, for this mug, this entire piece was missing where you see all black, and I did a similar thing, taking bits of the cut up cotton or cut up rami, and stuffing the hole, which is exactly what I'm going to do today. Repeating that process. Now this is actually much too thick here, so I'm going to press it out closer to the true form. And as you can see, it's pushing up the excess up here towards the rim. I'll go ahead and pull that off. Now, keep in mind, this is the second application of filler I have applied to this mug. You can see it is not that thick of a mug. This is probably a little over 1/8 of an inch thick. And technically the very first application of it was no more than just under an eighth pressed into the middle, and it was allowed to air cure on both sides. So the remainder here is getting pressed in at less thickness than that because it will only reach air on one side at this point. Next, I'm going to take just the sabi itself to fill some of these smaller cracks. Actually, I do need a bit here for this chunk. Now I'm going to mix up some purely nikawa-urushi. I'm going to start with, it would help to open it. Start with some sabi-urushi and some nikawa. Okay. I'm going to be using it on these ceramics here, but the first application will be for attaching this shell here to the mouth. This stuff is very sticky to work with. If I recall correctly, this plate was actually brought to my house by the filming crew who filmed some of my urushi work here in the US before sending me to Japan. And I believe they brought a plate along with them that was intended for me to show what the raw lacquer looks like on the plate. And the plate got broken, and they were going to throw it away, and I was like, no, I can repair that with urushi. It's just I think 2+ years later now. I don't have all the pieces of this plate. So after this is all dried and cured, I'm going to reconstruct this section of the plate with cloth and thickened sabi-urushi As I'm applying the tape, I'm pushing together any of the parts, the sides that are meeting with each other, because I want to make sure that everything is good and tight. Get the work piece here. This is made olive cloth. There's no string in it. It's pretty strong at this point. I simply want to add one more layer for the final amount of reinforcement, and then I'll begin applying only sabi-urushi to it. No more cloth from that point forward. But we're not quite there yet, so I'm going to go ahead and get the spatula here. Because it's flexible, it'll be a little easier to apply it to this curved surface. Make sure it's all good and spread out. Most of the time I don't care if seams overlap, because I do some amount of sanding before the final stages, and any overlapping bumps and lumps get worked out. However, this is the final layer of cloth, and I want to avoid as much overlap as I can at this point. And as you may have guessed, I do try to cut my fabric ahead of time. It takes some of the headache out after the fact, and it also saves urushi because, you know, the less excess fabric that you wind up coating, the better it is for your urushi supplies. But some cutting after the fact is definitely going to happen, especially on round objects, and it's okay to do. I've actually got a pair of surgical shears that are supposed to be arriving soon. That should make flush cutting a little easier. Oh, and I overshot right there. And with that, I'd say we have it. Just make sure that bottom is firmly attached. This is going to be a box. Currently, it has a solid interior, which after all of the cloth has been applied is going to get cut off, or cut out, I should say, removed. It will be the first square box that I've made using this method. Everything else has been curvy and shapy, but I figure, why not? I'm just going to apply the cloth as I go. That way I can see how far I make it before needing to stop. It appears as though I'll certainly have enough for one layer all the way around. I was toying with the idea of doing two, but honestly I probably should only do one anyway, so we're going to be good here. It seems here that I've mixed probably the perfect amount for completing this. So it looks like I have just a bit of excess left over. And that'll do it. Not much left here, but I don't want it to go to waste if possible, so I'm sure I'll have something else that I'll want to do in the next couple of days. See if I can go ahead and get that stored.